Hello, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the Stani Army YouTube channel. It's your host, Dr. Akbar Chowdhury. We may well have other hosts as well on this evening show. You might recall last week we started our 12th Man series. That's where we're getting to know some Pakistan fans who follow the team both in this country and abroad. Last week, obviously, it was myself speaking to Imi. He gave us a really interesting insight into how he became a Pakistan fan. And obviously how he was then involved in the in helping out with the formation of the Stani Army. We've got another guest this week. It's Dr. Samara Afzal. She's a GP and a big Pakistan cricket fan. And I know she's hopefully going to be really excited to tell you her story of how she became a Pakistan fan, as well as lots and lots of other things that she's doing with regards to cricket. Samara, assalamu alaikum and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Not at all. How are you? All well?
Yes, all good. Day off, so that's always a good big rest day.
Good. Okay, so obviously we're going to be talking, I'm sure we're going to be talking about cricket, about medicine, maybe a little bit of overlap as well. Do you want to maybe start by just telling us how you got into cricket and just a little bit about childhood experiences and memories of being a cricket fan?
So I got into cricket because everybody in my family was cricket mad, so particularly my father. And I remember that whenever Pakistan used to come to England, or if there was a World Cup, he'd get all his friends around, and literally all I could hear was screams from the other room. So I was quite interested to see what is this thing that they watch and why are they so excited about it. And they were always very happy when Pakistan won. So I got into it that way. So I used to watch with them, and then it kind of, the rules grew on me and I worked out what was going on. And then every weekend, my father and my uncles and my cousins, all the boys, they'd go out and play cricket. And at the time I was about 9-10 years old. So I always wanted to go as well. So I'd go along and play with them. At the beginning, literally, I'd be the person to go and get the ball. The kids would be the ones to go and get the ball. And then after a bit of time, we realised actually we need to bat and bowl as well. So got into that way. Then obviously kind of became a time when you hit kind of your teens, you're 13, 14, and then obviously being a Pakistani and culturally not that acceptable still to be playing amongst men, boys. So a few kind of members of the family said to my father that I don't think it's appropriate that you bring your daughter along anymore. So at that point I was very upset, and I remember saying to my dad that, you know, it's not my fault that I was born a boy. I wished I was born a boy and not a girl. And I think at that point he actually felt quite sorry for me, so he found me a club. And at that time there wasn't actually a lot of women's clubs, so the nearest one was about 20-25 miles away in Wolverhampton. And that was quite a prestigious club because you have the likes of Rachel Hayhoe-Flint, the former England captain, Lucy, who used to play for England, fast bowler. So I joined there. My dad used to take me like every week to train. It was about an hour there, an hour back. And then gradually found clubs closer to home, then played for Warwickshire, then ended up playing for the university team, captain the university team, and then try and still play now. Obviously, with being a doctor, as you know, literally you hardly have any time in the week, especially in the weekdays. So now whenever I get chance in the summer, I'll play for my club, which is Warmley at the moment.
Right. Okay. So certainly loads to discuss. I know Imi's itching to get on in the chat as well, so I think he's going to join us. Just interesting. Yeah. Oh, there's Imi. Just whilst we're kind of waiting for Imi to get with us, in terms of playing versus watching when you were younger. So for myself, and I don't know about Imi, but for myself, I probably watched more than I played. Do you think it was maybe the other way around for yourself?
No, I agree. I think I watched a lot more than I played. We would not miss a Pakistan match. So even like when they were playing in Australia, New Zealand, I remember waking up at 1 o'clock in the morning. Me and my brother would set the alarm. Australia, West Indies, you know, all times I remember doing it. And especially, this is going to sound quite bad now, but even, do you remember when there was the Sahara Cup and then the India, and then there was always a Sharjah Cup, and it was always India-Pakistan final, and it was always on a Friday. Obviously, we used to have school on Friday. So literally, me and my brother would both pretend that we had a stomachache on the day. And eventually, my mum clocked on. And I mean, things weren't as strict then. So we always used to miss Fridays and watch the final of the Sharjah Cup or the final of the Sahara Cup. and then as long as we made it with our work afterwards. So literally, you know, as you said, definitely watched literally every single game. I don't remember in my teens ever missing a Pakistan match.
I mean, go for it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna interesting. I was listening while you guys were on air, and I had to do a few things. Basically, we've all got a very, very similar story from childhood. You know, we all were inspired by someone within the family watching the game and everything. Though, like in my household, for example, my mum used to watch with us, with her little understanding. Though my sister would she would never watch. You did say there's a little taboo, wasn't there, about a girl watching or even playing? In terms of like at school, break times and everything else, did you try to get involved in cricket, and what used to be the responses?
I mean, unfortunately, in our school, we never played cricket. So the closest actually was rounders. So I remember playing rounders and trying to hold the bat as you but hold the bat as you would a cricket bat. So that was the closest. And then it was in college actually that we did experience. And again, they only had a men's team. And because it was a very prestigious college, King Edward's, and they'd never had a girl played for them, it became a bit controversial at the beginning. Do we let this girl play in an actual club game for us? And the coach at the time, I remember, he was a really good guy, and he was actually very excited that suddenly there's a girl for the first time in however many years this college has been open, 40, 50 odd years, that we've actually got a girl playing cricket. And I used to train with the boys, and there was, I mean, there were a lot of, it was quite strange because a lot of the non-Asian guys were like, oh, this is pretty cool. And I remember playing a club game. My brother's team actually had one player less, and they said, oh, why don't you play? And I remember playing that game, and I got 4 wickets, and all the kind of, you know, non-Asians were all really excited. But I would always find that when I was training at college with Asians, there was always some sort of dig, like, okay, this is weird, or, you know, a bit of mockery, which they thought was funny, but it wasn't funny because you just wanted to be accepted. And I think now that notion has changed, and I see girls play amongst boys, and no one's really making fun of them. And I think it's become a little bit more accepting. And I think that's where we need to go towards, because you can't always get that many girls to make a team. So I think guys need to be more accepting of letting a girl come and play with them.
In the it's quite interesting because, like, when I was at school, we had a similar sort of system. Girls would never get involved. So when we should have this thing called interform competition. So every form class will play every form class, and then you have a semi-final and a final at the end of it. And like we used to have like 8 boys and 2 girls, so you go out in pairs. And like I used to be one of them who would go out with a girl, and there used to be another person who would go out with a girl. And what our aim, and I was guilty as much as what you've just said other boys were. We used to say, right, we're going out with a girl because we're just going to look to hit 4s and 6s, and we're not giving any strike to them. On the last ball of the over, we're taking a single. And we used to do that every single time. We won the competition 5 years in a row. But I actually felt, when you just said that, I felt actually as guilty because we never used to think of it as like basically it's wrong. But you look back at it now, and that generation gap is massive. You know, our thoughts were completely different. So I would like to apologize on that because that actually hit me there. Cricket.
I've just got a quick question. Obviously, you talk about around that age playing against or playing on some boys' teams, or maybe if they're a little bit short. Did you feel, and if not, then fair enough, but did you feel that maybe you almost had to be kind of better than them, almost to be seen as equal kind of thing, because you were seen as possibly not as good being female, or was it maybe not kind of that kind of environment?
Yeah, no, you did, because you know, even when you're playing, literally you could hear the boys whisper saying, oh, you can't be out from a girl. And there was that pressure on you because you're kind of seen as not as good, because, you know, if you were out by me, then you were seen as a rubbish player, basically. So there was that pressure. But I think at that time, I probably wasn't as confident. So I used to literally play and then just keep myself to myself for the rest of the game. And the confidence actually still comes with when you're playing with your girl club mates. So now it's fine. Now we've got a doctors team as well in Birmingham, and I played for them at 2020 a couple of weeks ago, and it's fine. You've got used to it. And actually, sport in that way gives you confidence in life generally. So that's why I would always encourage everybody to take up a sport, because it's a team game. You have to contribute. There's only so much you can sit out and not talk to people. You have to talk, you have to make decisions. And I think that's why it's really important that everybody gets involved in sport. I think we're lucky in England that we have a culture where I can go and play with a team full of male doctors. I don't think I could do that in Pakistan. I remember going to Lahore and literally cricket fields everywhere, and I was itching to go and just play at any of those grounds. And all of the time my family would be no, that would be the answer, blanket no, you can't go. At one point I even saw a couple of girls training at the Lahore, just next to Gaddafi Stadium. There's a little LCCA ground, and again a couple of girls are training there once, and I was just really edging to go and play, but again it was like, no, it's not acceptable. And I think hopefully that will change, but I think we're lucky here that we have got that opportunity now.
Yeah, definitely. Heroes, as a child growing up, maybe like your school time, was there like a particular cricketer that you should look up to, whether that's Pakistan or England? And the other thing is, was there a side of you that would support England as well, or did that grow like later in the years?
No, I'll be completely honest. I've always supported Pakistan up to maybe 4 or 5 years back. Growing up, it was always Pakistan. When England played other teams, I'd support England over all the other teams like Australia, West Indies. But when Pakistan were playing, it was always Pakistan, or any World Championship, it was Pakistan. In terms of heroes, this is debatable in terms of cricketing skills, but Shahid Afridi, I think, regardless of what people say about how he plays, I think actually he put Pakistan cricket on that world map at that time. And lots of obviously females watched cricket because of his persona, his character. And I remember, even though some days he wouldn't score much, but I remember when Shahid Afridi used to come out to bat, literally my dad would leave whatever he was doing, mum would leave whatever she was doing in the kitchen, most likely. Me and my brother would already be glued to the TV, and everybody used to get together and watch. And I remember at school as well, we had to write a little essay about someone who's inspired us. And I remember writing about Shahid Afridi, and because at the time he'd hit the fastest 50 off 18 balls. So at that time, I think he did a lot to get people into cricket, and he was a big hero. Then obviously going after that, people like Saeed Anwar, Asim Akram, Waqar Yunus, Inzamam al-Haq, I was a big fan of, particularly after that Multan test match. Another day I remember skiving, because that was an amazing test match where he literally single-handedly prevented them losing to Bangladesh. So all of these guys, I mean, currently I wouldn't say I'm as a fangirl as much compared to the olden days when you're growing up. I think maybe that's something about being a teenager. You're kind of, you want the posters on your books and your screensaver. But now I wouldn't say I'm a particularly big fan of anybody. I appreciate good cricket. So I just watch, and whoever's doing well, I'll support them.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Doctor, any questions?
Yeah, I was going to say, just it's interesting as a fan. I think it's probably something we can all relate to, isn't it? Where, and obviously, I know Imi and myself, we're big football fans as well. As you get older, and you almost get to the point where you're maybe even kind of older than some of the players, it goes from kind of that hero worshipping, as you're saying, to kind of almost seeing them as. I mean, some of the Pakistan, I'm like double the age of some of the lads that play for Pakistan, allegedly, given their age. So. Do you think that has that kind of changed your view of the team? Has it changed the way in which you support the team, do you think, or are you still someone who will be kind of glued to every game regardless?
I think I'll be honest. 2010, the big match fixing scandal. 2017, the PSL spot fixing scandal, really put me off cricket, international cricket, I saw a whole different side of it. And I'll be honest, there was a couple of years there I didn't even want to watch a game of cricket because I saw the other side to it, and it really upset me because, you know, this sport that people worship, and you saw that actually how people exploit that game for other reasons. So that put me off, and I think I probably speak for a lot of cricket fans when I say that is an element that's of the game related to Pakistan anyway that has put people off. I think now it's coming back because I think the current cricket board are actually doing a lot of work, anti-corruption work. There's a lot more ethics, morals involved on how they select players. I know there's, you know, the debate about the whole new system and getting rid of departments and things. But I think on the whole, it looks like they're making an effort. And it looks as though they're actually picking these youngsters on merit as opposed to just nepotism and who they know. So I think I have now got back into it and I've started watching it, following it. I'm currently trying to follow the T20 that's on as well. So and I think it's a good thing. And I think you know, when you're as a kid watching Pakistan play, it used to give you some sad days, but you know, you'd have something to look forward to. And it's nice to be able to be a big fan because then at least you have something to look forward to, especially as, you know, having a stressful job, you need to sometimes just come home and switch off and have something else to look forward to.
Yeah, no, very much so. Just another quick one from me. Obviously, we've spoken about watching the team and playing. In terms of going to matches, memorable experiences of kind of watching Pakistan games. I presume in England as well as kind of other places, but kind of most memorable game that you can recall that you've been to.
India-Pakistan, and that was in 2000 and it was university, and Pakistan won. I think it was 2006, 2005.
Champions Trophy in Edgbaston in this country?
Yes.
Yeah, so I funnily enough, I actually started uni the day before because that was an early September game. I think we won right at the end. It was at the day Yusuf scored the winning runs at the end. I think he played a good innings.
Yeah, I remember
that one. That's probably my most memorable watching live. Yeah. And South Africa versus Pakistan. Recently, when was that? That was in I think 2008, 2009, 2009 maybe, when Pakistan beat South Africa. And I remember because I went with one of my uni friends who's South African, so I remember him literally crying on the way home. So yeah, that was another really good game as well.
Was that the 2009 T20 semi-final?
Yes.
Up at Nottingham, wasn't it?
Nottingham, yeah, that's what it was.
There's a little story around that. Just going to quickly tell you guys before we move on. But I was actually at that game, and I didn't realise that. I knew my parents they went to someone's wedding, stroke Mendi. I think it was Mendi. And I didn't realise, and my dad rang me and asked me what the score is. So we're in the last over, and we knew we were winning by then. And it's I didn't realise that what he'd gone and done is put his phone on loudspeaker next to the DJ, and he's got it on there, and you could hear me screaming. So this whole wedding hall can actually hear me screaming. It was a one weird experience because next thing I got was like loads of cousins texting me going, you know what, everyone just heard that. And I was like, heard what? And it's like, so yeah, one of them experiences, like I learned that you do not let anyone hear you screaming over the phone ever again. So you talk about playing cricket and then being a doctor as well. How the time? How did you get the time around both things?
I think you have to make time, and I think growing up, my parents actually would much rather me going and playing cricket than going out with my friends and going to the movies or going, bowling and things like that. So in that way, I was lucky. And again, when I got to university, so I only played one season for Warwickshire, and then I kind of joined university. And then after that, it was a no-go because, you had to train literally in the week as well. And then there were tours abroad, lots of traveling. So then that had to be given up. So I couldn't train to that level. But club cricket, you can maintain. You have to make time, though. And in the summer, literally, that's what I would do. Every weekend would be one full game of cricket once a week. would be nets, and then we'd have university nets once a week as well. So for me, it was a balance of, because my parents, I was a bit of a geek. I didn't really socialize that much. I wasn't allowed out that much, I'd say. So, but cricket was. So for me, I was like, fine, I'll happily go to cricket. So the rest of the time was studying. So then you can maintain that balance. It's harder now when you're actually a practicing doctor, because you've got obviously your work, then you've got to come home and do other stuff you have to carry on with your learning and portfolio and that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit harder now, but in university days it is manageable, and college. So I do still encourage lots of students who start university, and I always say to all the girls, make sure you join that cricket team.
In terms of girls, is there now a more structured system for to like allow girls to progress? So clubs, academies, maybe trials. Is that more common now?
Yeah, there's a lot more girls teams now. So if you go on the ECB website and you put your postcode in, you can actually get up the nearest club. And ECB have done quite a few things. So they've got the whole All Stars thing, which is the young, starting from the age of 5, boys and girls, where they get to go and play. And then like Warwickshire, for example, doing these academies in half-term holidays and summer holidays where they do cricket camps. We didn't have those when we were kids, but it's nice now that they have them, where they literally go from 9 till 3 and they're just doing a cricket camp. And then from there, because you have like lots of people at the counties who are affiliated to different clubs, so people see you. So that I was almost scouted. So I was training actually with when we were training at university in the nets at Edgbaston, Moeen Ali's father actually has his own academy at Edgbaston, and it used to be Moeen training his brothers Gadir, Kabir Ali, Omar, and they would train there. So being the only Asian girl, one of the guys said to me, why don't you train with these guys? You'll get a lot of experience. But at the time, Moeen hadn't played for England, but he was playing for Warwickshire at the time. So, Moeen's uncle was really nice. He said, yeah, you can come and play with the boys. So I would play with like the 13, 14-year-olds at their nets. And then from there, I got the club that I'm playing for at the moment. The manager from there saw me, and then he told me to come along to their club. And then you kind of get, people just recognize you, and then they will try and encourage you to join a proper club if they do see you just training at nets.
We've heard a lot in the news recently about Azim Rafiq. He was a lad at Yorkshire, spoke a lot about discrimination that he faced. Obviously, you mentioned about being female and being in a largely kind of male, kind of dominated, a male-oriented kind of environment. From a kind of a racial or kind of an ethnic point of view, did you find that there was some discrimination coming your way? I believe you're based in the Midlands, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah. You do get nothing overtly. No one's overtly going to come into you when you're playing cricket or playing sport and, say anything. But yes, even when you're playing county cricket, there is things that are said which are uncomfortable, but they kind of said in a jokey way. And I have experienced that. And so what Azim has said isn't a surprise, really, because if we remember, cricket's actually always been in England, it's always been a very posh gentleman's game. And, there's like this thing associated with it. It's more seen as an upper class sport. And there are still sectors of that community that want to hold this sport in England very close to their heart. And it's a bit weird for them to see all these Asians coming and kind of taking over the sport. So there is that, but I think things are a lot better now, and I think there is a lot more diversity. I know particularly in Warwickshire, there's a few Asians that have played. One of the coaches there, Mina, she's from a Pakistani origin. And they've had black players playing for them. So I think counties are changing, but I can see why Azim said what he said.
Because I think even the England team now currently, I think, or certainly if you look at a squad of whatever 25 players or what have you, I think something like 85-90% have come from kind of public or private schools in England, kind of that very much, as you say, that kind of, or some people obviously on scholarships, but very much that kind of upper class, as opposed to perhaps maybe the more working class, which is in this country what people from Pakistani, Bangladeshi origin kind of tend to be. So I guess at the very highest level that there is still some of that that we see, but equally I guess that's why players like Moeen and Adil Rashid are such good role models for young Asian kids.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and then you've got organisations as well. You've got the National Asian Cricket Council that are doing a lot of work to get more Asians recognised, and I think they are actually giving scholarships to children from various backgrounds from South Asian families who overseas private school or a boarding school, but they're getting scholarships, and quite a few of them are getting into cricket boarding schools. So I think things are improving in that way.
It's a shame though. I mean, in this day and age, we still get some of that, but it's not a surprise. It's not a surprise. Day-to-day working life, and I've encountered it quite a bit. And I could say up to the age of maybe 30, I'd encountered nothing. But in the last 5-6 years, I've encountered more of it. But again, it's a minority that would do it compared to like the general rule. It's not going to be like everyone is going to be racially discriminating against others. In terms of like Birmingham, you mentioned Moeen as well. Him winning the World Cup, that must have been like for an area, someone like, you know, from the streets of Birmingham, a local lad, and he went on to do what he did, winning the World Cup. I think the same goes with Adil from the Bradford sides. And then obviously now Wasim Khan at Pakistan as well. It must actually make you really feel proud of being someone from Birmingham, where you've got now two people in Moeen and Wasim Khan, who one's now a World Cup winner, England regular, and the other one is transforming Pakistan cricket to new levels.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, especially Moeen, knowing him from when his younger days and to now, he's actually a very good guy. He's a very humble guy. And, you know, everyone can relate to him because he talks about his school and, you know, going to the normal school in this Pakistani area, just a normal guy going to the chippy after school with his mates. And again, you know, when he won the World Cup, of course, we were all very proud, and he's a very good role model. And again, with Wasim Khan, going from here to Pakistan to change cricket over there. Again, it's really good. And again, obviously, he's played for Warwickshire as well. So it is good that, well, they're putting Birmingham on the map here globally. We're getting some good talent.
Dr. Akbar, I'll let you take this from Hulk.
Yeah, establishing, doing more to get rid of kind of jokes. I think people are realizing more that words that you use against people who are of a different gender, a different race or religion, they can mean more than what is intended. And I think people are maybe taking care with their language a little bit more. Even if, I mean, people talk about this kind of subconscious or kind of unconscious bias that you might have against somebody from a you know, a different race. Even if you look at you look at kind of cricket commentary, okay, I wouldn't be accusing any kind of cricket commentator of racism or anything like that. But it's, you know, Asian players are very much always described as kind of naturally talented, and Rishti players, even if they might not be, there's those kind of stereotypes. Black players are always kind of very much kind of thought of as very powerful and strong and athletic. So I think it's, and that's a societal change. I mean, this isn't just a cricket problem or a football problem. You mentioned, I mean, the past 4 or 5 years in this country. This country has gone through a lot in the past 4 or 5 years as it kind of pertains to discrimination, people from who may have been born elsewhere or have come from other countries. So I think it's a society thing. But I mean, people are so into sport that I think if sport can kind of take the lead, and I know, Samara, you spoke about some of the measures that are going in place, then hopefully you know, some elements of society might kind of learn and kind of follow on from there. I've got a quick question actually for you both. I know you both have. I think you both got children, if I'm not mistaken. In the future, obviously, they might have a decision to choose between whether they're going to support England or Pakistan. What are the thoughts there in terms of how much of a steer you might give them? Obviously, being big Pakistan fans yourself.
I think naturally, because as in, you know, we followed Pakistan because we watched our parents follow Pakistan, so there'll be that. But then now, you know, I follow England just as much now, and I probably support England if not slightly more now than I do Pakistan. So I think they would automatically just, I've got a little one, so she watches, she knows it's cricket. To be fair, she's more interested in playing. She'll get the bat and she'll just swing the ball everywhere. But I think they just automatically kind of follow whoever you follow.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Danielle, for example, my girls are not into cricket. I've tried everything, taking them to games. I've tried everything. I mean, they would do a box on India in a World Cup game and they couldn't get into it. So that's that. But yeah, my little boy, I think it's because I've got the passion for Pakistan cricket, it automatically come. And because I watch Manchester United, I think that was pretty much automatic. The first thing that, like today, when I walked through the door and I gave Slam and I went, "How's school today?" He goes, "Yeah, it was good." So, "Dad, have we signed Sancho yet?" So his mind is basically the way I think as well now. But that's something that's just natural, as Dr. Samara just said. Kids learn from us, and they take a lead. And if same thing with me, my parents were supported Pakistan, so I had no other choice. And with Man United as well, it was no other choice. I got a baby photo when I'm like 1 hour old, 2 hours old, and my brother's actually got a Manchester United top on picking me up. He doesn't watch football anymore, but I had no choice. It sort of just got embroiled into me. Again, current establishments are not calling out those who are racist. Why do you think this is? Why do they not realize we are losing confidence in them? I think we just covered that.
Just a quick thing, and just on that though, obviously with the comment coming in from that maybe people aren't doing quite enough. Samara, would you have, I guess, more or less confidence in kind of, sending your daughter to maybe play some cricket, kind of, organised cricket as she gets older than maybe your parents may have had with you doing those kind of things, maybe because of some positive changes, or do you think actually there's still a lot of negativity about?
No, I think I'd be confident to send her, particularly the club I'm associated with. They're very welcoming. Everybody's really nice, and they've got a diverse background of girls. So and I've seen, because I think Asian parents back in when we were younger, there was always that worry they're going to go out, who are they hanging around with? Are they going to get into smoking, drugs? That kind of thing. But I think now when people know and you see the club culture, it's not actually all about drinking. Yes, people are, sat in the clubhouse, they have a drink, but actually it's a focus towards the game. And and I think parents should, we should have probably taken our parents, or if they'd have been exposed more to cricket clubs and what happens, they probably would have been okay.
The comments are now like initially they weren't in flying, so we wanted to go into the fitness side. We'll do that in 2 minutes. I'm just going to quickly go through these. Dr. Samara, is there anything that Stani Army can do to support girls into cricket? We've started a couple of projects. We're talking to a few people out there, trying to get more involved into girls cricket. As the awareness is sort of coming through that it really lacks something. Any suggestions on how we can support it?
I think with getting Asian women and girls into cricket, it can be hard in certain communities. I mean, where I work, there's a very big Kashmiri community, and the girls aren't allowed to go out and play any sport. So we did this project with the National Asian Cricket Council, where I actually got a lot of my female patients to come and play with me because they knew me. I was a trusted GP. They came and we did like 6 whole weeks of cricket, and they absolutely loved it because a lot of them had come from Pakistan, and of course they were big Pakistan fans, and they automatically knew how to play. And I think to get South Asians, you have to have someone there that they trust. And maybe start with everybody in the Stani army who's got like sisters, daughters, bringing them along so that people can, they open up, and then someone from that taking charge and getting more girls, and then holding like regular sessions across different parts of the country, starting in a closed environment, because it's hard to suddenly expect girls who've never played any sport to come and suddenly play. And I know certain sectors of the South Asian community still won't be happy if you're playing with boys, and I think that's not a criticism, because that's just the way the culture is. So I think it needs girls to take girls at the start.
Next summer we have got a couple of plans, especially within East London where I live and a couple of others live. We are looking to have children's events and to really target girls, especially just to have them to come out and play cricket, whether that's South Asian girls or English, black, anyone. Literally, it could be anyone. But if you ever have an event which you think that we might be able to help, one sort of just set up, help with coaching, or just be the cheerleaders like we normally do it, we're absolutely willing to help out now, because this is the direction we want to go into. Now we want to start helping the local community up and down the country. Samara, who was your favourite cricketer when growing up? If you missed that, that was for Shahid Afridi.
How about favourite English cricketer, Samara? Let's change that up a bit.
Sorry?
Cook.
Favourite English cricketer?
Alistair Cook, of more recent times, and then when I was growing up, it was because I was a bowler, so it was Darren Gough, Dominic Cork, my two favourites at that time.
Love the way Stani Army's to support more South Asian women in cricket. Thank you, and it's good to see men support women for this. I think the realization sort of comes at some point in your life. I think it was with you, Dr. Samara, when we had that British Asian Network show, start of the World Cup. And I think that day was an eye-opener for myself anyhow, because I actually realised that 1 minute, we always talk about cricket, but we never think about the girls' progression. And that was an eye-opener. But then I've always had this feeling where there's a taboo with South Asian girls, and we've discussed this many times, and every time we come back to the same thing and say, right, if as lads, if we were trying to organize something, the parents just won't allow girls to be in that place. They were just saying, no, there's boys there. And it's that taboo subject where, lack of trust, it's a cultural thing and everything else. But we want to help out now. We want to sort of change it as and when, slowly, one step at a time, whichever way.
I think that's what Samara's saying, though, that if they, so, with respect, if they did see kind of 6 lads dressed head to toe in green, they might be a little bit put off. But, if they did see that, there were females around, there were, females who were kind of, whether they were part of the Stani Army, whatever they might be, but kind of organising and around, I think that would probably encourage more young girls to kind of get involved. Obviously, that kind of first step needs to happen. Obviously, it's going to be, Samara, people like Samara who are kind of championing that cause, that I think are going to help the next generation of young South Asian girls kind of get involved and stay involved as well, because that's the other thing, isn't it? I mean, it's great for kind of for young girls to get involved, but like you said, Samara, kind of teenage years and things like that, other things can kick in, education can kick in. Not that that's a bad thing, but I think you've got to probably do a bit more to kind of keep girls interested and keep girls involved, and not just say, well, yeah, you can play with the boys until you're 13, but then after that we're just going to focus on the boys because they're going to be much stronger and much fitter and all that kind of stuff, which obviously isn't always the case. So I think it's about getting them involved and probably kind of keeping them involved as you obviously have done yourself.
Yeah. We've got about 10 minutes more, guys, and we'll wrap it up. But for the next, if there's any questions, we'll take them. Habib says hello. Hi, Habib. Say hello to your brother as well. That's actually from Birmingham. So, and for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to let you two discuss fitness, diet plans, and everything else, and how important are they for professional cricketers, or even just cricketers, people who want to progress in the game. How important is how they treat their body with food, training, etc., and decent exercises, I know nothing.
I mean, I'll start tomorrow. Obviously, we're both GPs. I think, as you say, you work in the Midlands. I don't know how much of a kind of proportion of your patients are of South Asian background, but in terms of some of the work that you've done with them to get them thinking about a healthy diet, maybe a little bit more, bearing in mind inherently what we know about the South Asian diet, what are the kind of challenges you faced, and how have you maybe tried to kind of overcome them?
I think one of the big things is cultural, especially with women. There's always an excuse to be overweight or have diabetes. So the most common excuse is, oh, I've had children, and because of my childbirth, since then I've put on weight and I haven't been able to lose it. Another problem that is, of course, when they are, expecting a child, the theory is to eat as much as you can, when we know you only need an extra 200 or 300 calories. And then once you've put on all that weight, it's very difficult to lose it, and it almost becomes a norm. So with my South Asian patients, pretty much all of them are overweight. So when they see everybody's overweight, there's no motivation to lose that weight. And even when they have diabetes, because in the initial stages, they can't see the effects physically on them. It's only later on, down the years, they get all the horrible complications of diabetes. Until then, they're not bothered. They'll continue to miss their diabetic medications. But on the other hand, there is the aspect of how do they do exercise. We know the Asian diet is horrendous. We know it's full of carbohydrates and fat, roti, rice, all these curries. We know they're not good for us at all. But we can't change that. And what the women tell me, correct me if I'm wrong, is that every time they try and cut the ghee in the curry, it's the men that complain, and it's the men that always want roti every day and curry every day. So that's their excuses to me. So that fine, that's not going to change. What needs to change is they need to then exercise more. The more you exercise, you need to then burn off those calories. But for women, there aren't really many exercise options for South Asian women housewives. Like, they won't go to a mixed gym. There aren't very many female-only gyms. What do? It's not in a lot of communities, it's not even acceptable for them to put YouTube on and do an aerobics tutorial because they're living with their mother-in-law or their father-in-law who might walk in. So it is hard. They've got challenges.
Yeah, that was going to be my next point, actually, is obviously, your weight is essentially a consequence of what goes in versus what gets burned off. And obviously, if we're going to struggle to change what goes in inherently with the diet being what it is, a lot more focus, I guess, probably needs to go on how you kind of maybe burn some of that stuff off. And I guess if there was a demographic or a type of patient that I feel less convinced of taking on my advice to kind of exercise or are less likely to do it, it would probably be kind of South Asian women. And that's not because they're being difficult or because they're making excuses, but I think there are so many barriers to getting out there, joining a gym, going for exercise. I say, we'll talk about kind of going for a run, and between us, there's almost that unspoken thing of, well, it's not going to happen. And that's really kind of difficult to change. And that's where I guess maybe group exercises and things like that. I know there is a fair amount of evidence of kind of group therapy, even for chronic diseases like asthma, COPD, diabetes. You almost kind of would feel quite comfortable having a group of 15, 20 South Asian women, perhaps all, from a diabetic point of view, saying, look, let's have some kind of group, let's have some kind of regular exercise where you all feel that you're in a trusting environment with people who and kind of maybe do things that way. But I don't know if you found it difficult as well, just kind of getting them to really buy into that idea of getting out, going for a run, doing exercises at home.
Yeah, a lot of them won't, but then a lot of them said they don't have time either because they might have 4 or 5 children. They've got to do all the cleaning. They live in extended families, so they've got to look after the in-laws. So I can see it from their point of view. I think COVID actually has, in one way, made some change, because actually from COVID, since COVID came and since people have realised actually it's disproportionately killing South Asian people, Black people, I've actually seen a lot more women in their salwar kameez in the mornings when I'm driving to work, in groups of 5 or 6 actually walking, and I never used to see that before. So I think in some aspects it's changing, but the problem is obviously we're aware of nutrition and how many calories we need and how many you need to burn, but because people don't have that understanding, they think even if they walk for an hour, they can come home and eat 2 rotis and curry, and they won't put on weight, but of course they will, because the amount they've lost by walking is minimal. You know, people don't get this concept of you have to increase your heart rate to a certain degree to actually burn off calories. And I think more needs to be done to educate people, so that they're aware of what exactly they need to do. And I think that education is missing. And even if we look at South Asian TV channels, it's like drama after drama, but how many actual, or cooking program, that's the other one, how many actually fitness programs do we see educating people on what to eat, what not to eat?
Yeah, no, not very many, I guess, is the answer to that one. And obviously, look, not to write off the previous generation by any stretch. And obviously, we're trying to do a lot more if we can. But do you see that the next generation, so for example, maybe when, well, I think we're all probably a pretty similar age, when we're maybe 30, 40 years older, and from then on, do you think things might change because that kind of, that education is there, the information is a lot more freely available than it was maybe for our parents growing up, whether they grew up here or whether they grew up abroad? That information probably wasn't there or quite as accessible 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. I think there'll be a big change when you know, when we're 20, 30 years older, you know, we'll be encouraging children to exercise because we've been doing that. And a lot of South Asian, you have to remember, they've all come from, you know, Pakistan, India. They came here to work, and they have been effectively literally spending their lives working without much time for anything else, be it as a housewife or be it, you know, as a taxi driver, as a shopkeeper. So they have their challenges, but I think us will have a more balanced lifestyle, and I think we've got the awareness, so I don't think we'll have such a big problem in about 30, 40 years time. I mean,
we've all probably done pretty similar exams. In the exam question, kind of, it's always the 55-year-old diabetic South Asian lady that kind of has the MI, isn't it? It's just that kind of stereotype, and you do see that in I guess in kind of real life as well. The other thing, I guess, that you just touched upon there is, I think there is a bit of a misconception, again, correct me if I'm wrong, that kind of doing a really hard day's work from 8 in the morning to 8 in the evening, driving all day as a taxi driver, and being shattered when you come home, I think there's a slight misconception that that's your exercise for the day. And not only does that count as your 30 minutes for the day, it counts as your 12 hours. You know, you've done 6 times more than you needed to just in one day. And I find it quite difficult to explain to patients that actually what you've done is very difficult and backbreaking work, but actually it probably hasn't burnt off very many calories at all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's the same with the women in housework, washing up, cleaning. It doesn't burn as many calories as people think it does, especially when you kind of take that break and then you'll eat roti, or you'll eat bread, or you'll eat biscuits. So there is that lifestyle.
So, and watch a drama in between.
And again, especially, and with shopkeepers, because they work till late. By the time they come home, it's 8, 9 o'clock, and that's when they eat, and then literally they'll go to sleep. And people don't get the concept of, you know, not having dinner so late. You have to at least have it 4 hours before you go to bed. The other concept people don't get is, you know, we all have our main meal and we're following it by cups of tea. And again, you're not supposed to have your tea with your meal. You're not absorbing your iron, and it's just all these little basic things that people don't understand. And when you tell them, they're actually quite surprised.
I guess we'll just finish off this little bit, because I know you want to kind of crack on, Imi. One thing I will say.
I can ask you a question while you're gone.
Sorry, go on, Imi. So I'll say that again. Sorry.
Carry on, and then I'll ask you the question.
Okay. I was just going to say that there is a lot, even for maybe the previous generation who don't quite access the information as much as maybe the youngsters do. I do feel there's a lot more out there and a lot more information available now than there was. I mean, I qualified as a doctor 10, 12 years ago now. If you kind of compare it to back then, I feel like there's a lot more info out there, and there are kind of more ways in which kind of people can change behaviors and improve kind of physical fitness coming from a South Asian background.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think there is a lot more now, but particularly people that have gone to now going to college, university, schools. In schools as well, there's a big emphasis on fitness and nutrition, which there wasn't when we were growing up. I don't remember many lectures on nutrition or fitness, or telling us how many calories we need and that kind of thing.
Even you know, Islamic specific advice during Ramadan, things like that. I mean, a lot of that stuff, again, I see that in textbooks now. I see that in patient information leaflets and things like that. Again, a lot of that wasn't there before. So I guess steps are being taken. Hopefully we'll see a change as kind of time goes on. Sorry, Amy, you were saying.
Just to pick up on the fitness side, diet, fitness, and the racial discrimination side, there's always been just to you, basically, on the football side, the lack of Asian footballers coming through. Do you think that we know that there is racial discrimination? I mean, there's no hiding away from that. There is, but do you think that there is another side where young South Asian boys, girls, even now, maybe they haven't controlled their diets? They haven't been disciplined enough to be able to control their diets and stay away from, say, the junk food or eating roti or rice at the same time. Do you think that's actually played a role as well? The just the discipline around what they eat and how they exercise.
Look, it's difficult to say because I've never been an elite sports person, so I've never been in that situation where I've seen me or people around me kind of, you know, be refused or be told, no, you can't go further in this team because of X, Y, Z. And so I'm not going to downplay that there may well be, as you say, a bit of kind of racial discrimination there. If you kind of see interviews with coaches and things like that, people kind of giving reasons as to why, whether it's cricket or football, young Asian lads and girls don't make it. There are two things they talk about, or two or three things. One is they say they don't have the 24/7 dedication. Absolutely, this is what I'm going to do for the sport in question. The second thing is that often the parents don't kind of allow that to happen because they are kind of pushing that child more towards education as opposed to kind of the sports side of things. And the third barrier, they say, is diet. And no matter how much they might be dedicated and how much they kind of have the talent, if they're going home and having kind of a bad South Asian diet, then that's a big reason as to why they, you know, when it comes to picking between two players, you might go with the one who's got a little bit of better physical fitness or that discipline to follow a certain fitness regime. So it's been said a lot. Like I say, I think it would be unfair to say that that's why Asian lads aren't coming through, because there are definitely other factors at play. But certainly the diet has been mentioned more than once by people in cricket and football.
Interesting. Just to now round it all up, Dr. Samara, any message that you would actually want to give to England, Pakistan fans, and especially girls on pursuing their dreams?
I think in terms of pursuing your dreams, I think everybody, you know, can. If I can play cricket or have represented Warwickshire, then I'm sure anybody can. And I think that the bigger message is probably not to girls, it's actually to men. And I would say, let your daughters, let your sisters play sport. I absolutely understand that, you know, you're protective of them, and particularly in Pakistan, of course, you know, the environment, you know, is not great, but especially here, I would say that the amount of benefits exercise or playing sport have, giving you confidence, being able to deal with actually bigger things in life. And I think for me, my confidence all comes down to playing cricket, and I think it's really helped me handle much bigger issues in my life. We know that exercise helps depression. We know that exercise releases hormones which make you happy. We know all the you know, benefits, and the most important thing is, I think once you start playing a sport in your younger days, fine, you may not become a professional athlete, and it's not always about becoming a professional athlete, and you can juggle education and sport. So I think parents really need to let their daughters play some sport, and actually not just let them, but encourage them actively to play sport, because it might not be something they thought about because they've never seen any other woman or girl in their family play a sport, but actively actually encourage them. Even if it's not cricket, even if it is something else like badminton, netball, anything, but as long as it's physical activity, they're doing it regularly, because then they're more likely to do it when they're older, and that's going to have multiple benefits for them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akbar. Thank you for joining me as well.
Pleasure, as always. Cheers, guys.
And Dr. Samara, thank you very much for joining us and giving us the opportunity to actually discuss, one, your experiences, and number two, let us learn, because we've all learned a little bit from today, because we're all guilty, as I said earlier, of discrimination, whether we sort of do it knowingly or unknowingly. We've all, at some point, we've all said, okay, either ignored it or either been a part of the problem. So yeah, I really appreciate you coming on.
No, thank you for having me.
And thank you everyone else who's watching still. Thank you for the comments. We'll be back soon enough and you have another show. But I think me and Dr. Akbar might actually do one of the T20 roundups as well. It's not being great coverage wise at the moment, so that's why I wouldn't do it at the moment, because I'm trying to follow it, but then there's only so much we can follow at the moment. So but we'll round it up at some point.
Info told me that the toss happened for yesterday's game, so that's breaking news, but that's about as far as it's gone.
Yeah, I think Cricket and GIF is probably the best site at the moment for that, but the coverage has been less not great so far. So yeah, either way, thank you both for coming. Thank you everyone for watching. And as I always say right at the end, Pakistan!
Zindabad.